Okay, so I think we're live. Welcome to the Deal Doctor live stream. I am located today in the Sandale office, coming to you with our special guest, Marissa Harrington. Hey, say hey, Marissa.
Hello.
Hello. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how do we juggle all of the balls at once in the air in this business. And just as a way to start out, I'd like Marissa to share just what she has going on. As you can see, she's in her vehicle driving.
Yes.
And just share what you shared with me about 5 minutes ago. Will you please?
I said it was really ironic that we were having this live stream today because, you know, I'm on my way to a final walkthrough right before a closing. And then after that, have to pick up kiddos and, right? But you find a way to make it work, right? That's this career.
And thank you. I want everyone to also know that you're part of our broker support team.
Yes.
But help me when you say you make it all work.
Yeah.
How do you make it all work?
That's a great question. So it's taken some time. I've been in the business almost 7 years now. It'll be 7 years in July, 6 years with 5-star. And I had to learn how to time block and compartmentalize. I am one who I have young children, as I did when I started the business. We've added another one since I've been in real estate. So, you know, there are a lot of responsibilities that I have just from family commitments, right? And it was very important to me. I didn't want my career to be a burden on my family. You know, I had to learn the hard way. My first 2 years, I was probably working like 70 to 80 hours a week. And my husband said, no, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to see my wife and the kids want to see you. So I had to learn how to put up boundaries, not only for my clients, but also for myself. Right. So I've done it over the years. I'm able to accomplish it with time blocking, and I time block everything. I even time block self-care, date nights, dates with the kids. I time block it all so that I make sure that I'm filling my cup as well as running my business.
Yeah. And I think time block is a really good description, because like you, I will build in time where for me, for my well-being, I'm going to get on a bicycle and ride for 3 hours, and right. I have to build that in. And sometimes I will get calls from my clients or agents or whatever, and I will have to say to them, I'm on an appointment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So y'all know my secret now, okay? If I say I'm on an appointment, there's a good chance it involves an Italian racing bike, just so you know. But even as a single person household, I have to find time and block out spaces.
Right.
And you mentioned boundaries. Is that a form of setting boundaries? How do you enforce that time block?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the time blocking was the first step, learning how to do that. And I learned how to do that when I took Ninja for the first time, the Ninja installation, when I first joined 5-star. And the concept of time blocking was revolutionary to me at the time. But I learned, you know, when do I want to do things? When do I have to do things for my business and for the family? I set reminders and notifications for myself. So that was step one, right? Actually getting these things on a physical calendar and setting up notifications. And then the second step, which didn't come right away, was the setting of boundaries. So with setting boundaries, you can use certain tools, right? You can shut your phone off. You can put your phone on do not disturb. You can, your voicemail, right? So your voicemail, you can set it up in a certain way where people know, okay, I'm answering the phone between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., right? If it's on the weekend, maybe by emergency only, but you know, whatever your personal boundaries are, you set them, you communicate them clearly, and then you stick to them. And you have to do that. especially in this business. You have to do that, or else, you know, you're going to run yourself ragged.
Yeah, and I'll speak for myself, but tell me if it is for you as well. That's the toughest part, is to not break the rules once you've established them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also understanding too, and I'm not saying this without the acknowledgement of grace, right? You have to give yourself grace, and you have to give your calendar grace sometimes. Like sometimes, you know, I'll use an example. If I have a kiddo that needs to be picked up, you know, that might mess up my calendar, right? Or like today, you know, closings, a lot of times we can't really dictate, right? If it is conducive to our client's schedule, you go, okay, this closing popped on my calendar, I have to honor the closing, right? So
well,
give yourself grace too, you know?
Yeah. And I think that is a perfect segue into Michelle Lipka's question. How do you adjust your time block when something unexpected comes up, like a showing, or Marissa, in your case right now, you're experiencing that. What do you do? How do you adjust your time block?
There's two different things. So with time blocking, very specifically, there's standing appointments. There's standing things on my calendar. So my client calls, if I have a team meeting, when I'm writing my notes, there are things on my calendar that are standing. I don't, as much as humanly possible, I don't want to interfere with those things. So that means everything else is put into, so for myself personally, between like 9 and noon, 9 in the morning to 12 p.m., I'm working on my business. And then after 12, I'm working in my business. So that's appointments, that's final walkthroughs, that's closings, right? That time, that afternoon time is a little bit more flexible, but the morning time is not. So my suggestion would be to have things that, you know, as much as you can, don't touch them. As much as you can. Now, obviously, if I had a client that was like, I have to close in the morning, then I have to readjust my schedule for that day. Like, okay, my notes now have to be pushed to 10 o'clock instead of 9. So you don't not do the things, you just adjust them within the calendar so that you still hit what you need to hit. But, you know, things come up in our business, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And when I was faced with Michelle's question, what do you do when somebody wants to jump in the middle of your time block? And my solution was to not do it as much as possible. And I would say to them, I have a prior appointment.
Yes.
With an Italian bicycle. Get it. I get it. Okay. But I said, I have another appointment scheduled already. Can we do that at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock? So I attempt to push it to another space within the calendar. If it was unavoidable, I made a decision a long time ago that I would work like the DEQ or Eagle, whatever they call now. But I would take a portion of wetlands, and I would have to replace it with 1.5 or twice as much as it was. So if you're going to do my time block for 2 hours in the morning, I'm going to make it 3 hours in the afternoon. And that's a little bit of a punishment on my part to deter me from moving that 2 hours in the morning. Do you find yourself doing something like that, or?
That's genius. I actually don't do that. I adjust it, but I like that. You know, if I have allotted, so for myself, I allot about 20 minutes a day to do my notes in the morning, right? And then if I have an appointment pop up or closing or whatever, and I can't do it at that time, I move it to the afternoon. But I like that idea of like adding extra time to whatever, like 20 minutes, maybe I add an hour and go, okay, let me do more notes, or, you know what I mean? Just as a deterrent to not move it. There is power to, Michelle. There's power in no. There is so much power and freedom in saying no. And you're not a bad agent and you're not a bad business owner when you say no.
I found that a lot of clients will respect you more.
Exactly.
Because They recognize that you are working with a number of people that they're very important to you. You want
Yep,
their business. But how many times have we called a doctor or a lawyer or some other professional and they've said,
exactly.
well, I have, Thursday at 2 o'clock available. Well,
Hmm.
I'd like to come in at Thursday at 10 o'clock. I already have that booked. I'm sorry. I have Thursday at 2 o'clock. Would that work for you?
Right,
So if you look at other professionals and how we respond to them, um,
exactly.
I think it's a good idea for us to kind of hold our own to the extent that we can. I'm going to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you work with a to-do list at all when you start your day?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I want more on that one, Marissa. I can tell.
Because there's like 50 things on my to-do list on any given, like it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the question I'm going to ask is, I want to stay on that topic. When you create a to-do list, and this is something that I've
Hmm.
been doing for, oh gosh, 40 years, but when I do a to-do list, everything is on one page, on one page. I don't care if there's 10 things in a day or 100 things, it all goes on one page. That means
Okay.
taking the kids to the doctor, or I'm picking up a prescription, or I have groceries to buy or appointments. Everything is on one page in front of me. And as I go through my day, I can scratch them off. And that's kind of a reward. That's a reinforcement today that I
Hmm.
accomplished something. It seems to me that too often, uh, all professionals in all walks of life, um, they do things on two different things. They have a business calendar and a personal calendar. And
Hmm.
eventually, one of those calendars is going to take priority. And they're
Right.
going to be acting on very often the business calendar, the career calendar, rather
Hmm.
than the family or personal calendar. Would you agree with that in general?
I do. So I'll speak to both of those. So my to-do list is on Google Keep. So Google Keep, I can have on my phone, I can have on my laptop, I can have on my desktop, and it's a running list of the things that I have to do that day. And I check them off as I do them. And that's everything. That's business, personal, that's everything is on one list. I've tried before to separate the list. Like I had a personal to-do list on Google Keep and I had a business one, and one of them I would neglect. So I just decided to put all of them on one list. So there's that. The second thing is I've also so I use Gmail. With Gmail, I have my literally work calendar, team calendar, personal calendar. There's extracurricular things that I do that have their own calendar, and it's all color coded. Um, but that's how I'm able to compartmentalize. Everything has to be in one spot. And, my team will tell you, they look at my calendar and they go, oh my God, it looks like the rainbow, because it's multiple things, but in one spot. Because for me, if it's not on the calendar, probably with a notification, it does not exist. It does not exist in my brain at all.
That's great. I want to come back to notifications because I think that's really important in today's world. But
Yeah.
but first, before I go there, when we talk about creating a to-do list, do you prioritize that to-do list with the most important things you have to do today? And I'll mention, I know that
Question.
Crystal Halleck presented something on Facebook Connect, I think it was, or someplace, and the phrase was "eat the frog." And when I saw that, I was like, what in the world? And she went on to explain that it's like to do the very hardest, nastiest, awful, ugly thing that you have to do
Yep.
first, that you take on the biggest challenge. Eating the
Yep.
frog would be one of them. But you
Yep.
take on the biggest challenge first, and that's how you can set priorities in your to-do list to make sure that you handle the big stuff first.
Yes.
Do you do that at all?
I I probably should, but I don't. I set a list based on what comes to me. I will though say that when I'm inputting things on this list, the things that are the most pressing on my mind go first. And then the things that aren't as much keep dropping down on the list. So I don't, and I say it because of this, like priorities for me, just because of family and work, change on any given day. And so I could think in the moment that something is a priority, and then something with the kids pops up, and with kids, that then takes precedence, right?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I think it would be too much for me personally to go, okay, these things first and then these things next, because my life is a little bit too unpredictable with the kiddos.
Well, and anyone with kids understands that. I know that,
Right.
when I got a call from the school nurse or the principal,
Exactly.
everything else took second place.
Exactly.
So,
appointments, everything, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
So I did something else here, and I don't know if you're going to see some really fine. Marissa, you don't have to watch because you're driving. But if you ever heard of the story of the rocks, pebbles, and sand, and it talks about if you have rocks, pebbles, and sand, if you put the sand in first, then the pebbles, then you try to put the rocks in, they all won't fit. So the better alternative is if you take the same thing and you put the rocks in first, and then you let the pebbles and the sand percolate down through them, that you manage to fit it all into one day, which is really what we're talking about. So if we take the big stuff and we put the big stuff in, and we make sure that we get the big stuff done, whether we eat the frog in the beginning or we eat the frog in parts throughout the day, you get it all done because you've managed to organize it well. And I've got a comment here. Let's see what the question. What would you do if your buyer signed the wrong PA and he was confused, couldn't archive it fast enough? Well, I would probably have him sign the right PA. I guess I'm not sure exactly what happened there, or that it's pertinent to this conversation. But if there's a PA that's been signed which is not reflective of his offer, then I would probably have it resolved. So, anything to add to that, Marissa?
I was gonna say the same thing. You just have to. But you can also unarchive in .loop.
Yes, correct. Okay, so any other thoughts about how do we take care of ourselves?
So I also wanted to speak to, you just said you had that really great illustration about prioritizing, right? And what it just brought something to just the forefront of my mind when you did that. What would you, I'm asking you, Don, as a realtor, right? You're running your own business. What are the big pebbles that you would, what are the things you would consider to be like the big pebbles, like the big things? Prospecting. Okay. What else?
And well, that's it.
Just that.
That's it. When I was very active in the business, my number one thing, my time block began at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and went till 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And nobody, and I have to confess that I missed, dance practices that my kids were involved in, and sometimes stuff that was happening with them at school, because my number one priority, and I sat with my family and I said, this is what I have to do in order to make a living for us. And it's between 3 and 8 o'clock on Monday, I'm not available, not for family birthday parties, not for anything. This is where I have to be. And it was a difficult decision, but it was one I had to stick to in order to prospect for business. Prospecting has always been my number one priority when it comes to creating business in real estate.
Yep. That's my morning time. So yeah, absolutely. And I do it in the morning because I'm not a morning person. But that's when I'm the most fresh. Like I get, drop the kids off, I get into the office and that's what I do. So I would agree with that. Do you think Do you think the paperwork stuff is a big pebble or a small pebble?
Oh, that's a little pebble. That's way down there in the little pebble stuff. We very often get sucked into doing what a former mentor, a trainer of mine once said, doing $5 an hour work.
Yes.
We can hire, and it's not $5, I get it now, but we can hire that work done. We can hire people to do that work for us. We should not get bogged down. We have to maintain getting face to face with our clients, even if nowadays that's through a Zoom meeting. But we have to maintain that upper level, higher level contact with our prospects and clients rather than getting bogged down in the weeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. That's why I asked the question, because I found that a lot of times when I'm, talking to agents or coaching agents, the concern is I just don't have enough time in my day for all the things. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? What are you spending your time on? Well, I have to, do these contracts and I have to do, and I'm like, that shouldn't take a ton of time, right? That shouldn't take the bulk of your time. I think we get trapped with being busy, right? We're doing busy work as opposed to the heavy lifting, which is the prospecting, right?
There's a concept, it's a physics concept, which is called Beal's law of gaseous expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Beal's law of gaseous expansion, which says that a gas will fill whatever container it is given. So if you give it a small container, there will be more pressure, but you'll get it done within that period of time. If you give it a large container to fit in, it will expand, which is another way of saying, when we get involved with things like CMAs and doing paperwork, that job tends to expand well beyond what is necessary, because it gives us the, forgive me, excuse that we're busy, rather than the tough stuff, eating the frog, which is to go out and prospect and get face to face with potential clients and customers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? We've covered a lot of ground here. There's no magic. There's no magic, as there's so much of this business. It's just doing the tough stuff and getting business. So no questions. Thank you, Emma. And so with that, I will say thank you to our special guest, Marissa Harrington.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. And next week, I think we've got Eric, who's going to be joining and hosting. And I believe he is bringing in Pat Drucke, our attorney. So
Nice.
again, thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.